All right, ready.
This regular city council meeting, the 38th City Council of Oak Park, Michigan, July 6, 2020 is called to order. Clerk Ed Norris, would you call the roll?
Mayor McClellan,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Burns,
Here.
Councilmember Radner,
Here.
Councilmember Weiss,
Here.
and Councilmember Edgar.
Here.
Okay, we have quorum. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember Weiss. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have a motion passed. Next, we have the consent agenda prepared for City Council without discussion as a single item. Regular council meeting minutes of June 15th, 2020. Change order number 1 in the amount of $8,544.19 credit. And payment application number 4 for the total amount of $219,441.41 to Macomb Pipeline and Utilities Company of Sterling Heights, Michigan for the 2019-20 water main replacement project M704. And finally, licenses new and renewals submitted for July 6, 2020. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Mayor Pro Tem? Is there a second? Councilmember Edgar? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. We have an elected official, Helene Zach, our county commissioner. Would you say a few words? I think, yep. Helene, I think you're muted. Can you unmute yourself?
I'm trying. Okay.
There.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Happy July. I'm Helene Zach, Oakland County Commissioner for the east part of Oak Park. And I wanted to give you an opportunity to let residents know that there are a ton of grant opportunities to help our residents. Oakland County was very fortunate to receive $219 million of direct CARES COVID funding. And if you go to www.oakgov.com/COVID, you'll see the multitude of many grant opportunities. There is a third round of economic recovery grants for small businesses. And I know that there were many businesses in Oak Park that got grants the first 2 rounds, but this one is trying to target businesses such as salons, personal services that were forced to gyms that were closed even longer. And we call it recovery because we want to help them. There's also within this 32 million, there are special services and opportunities for minority business owners. We want to make sure that we are helping our businesses that are disproportionately affected. And another creative thing within this recovery, we are going to have business consulting services to help small businesses that may not have access to lawyers or business coaches. And that's all going to be free to the business owners, part of that opportunity. We also appropriated, there is over $3 million coming into our community home improvement department housing from CDBG. And we also appropriated an additional $5 million to help people with rental and mortgage assistance and utility assistance. And what you need to do, and it's all on this Oakland County grant opportunity, is to contact our housing counselors. And what is better is, frankly, the income levels for people are higher on this $5 million funding and the CDBG. People can qualify that were truly touched by COVID. And so I hope people are listening and will seek out the housing counseling assistance. Another thing that we have approved is that there will be, I think, 68 nurses, public health nurses, are being hired to work with all of the school systems to prepare the environment, make sure that our schools are going to be as healthy and safe as possible. And these nurses will work with the students, the staff, the administration as public health nurses till the end of the year. Other things, happy to report that 88 nonprofits throughout Oakland County received funding, again, the CARES funding, to a tune of about $12 million. And they are geographically spread throughout the county, very diverse. There are a multitude of, there's many nonprofits that are housed in Oak Park, Ferndale, and Southfield that are getting assistance through that. And these are nonprofits that have provided wonderful services to our residents throughout all of this. Another piece of the puzzle of fighting COVID is contact tracing. And when we started with contact tracing, we had 3 contact tracers in our health department. And they have done an amazing job of responding. And they've now trained 200 staff amongst, our existing staff to be contact tracers. And it's not just, and I know that many people have volunteered and taken the class online, but we have trained them, supervised them. They've listened to calls, they've had a chance to be supervised on calls. So should we have another peak, and I hope not, we do have a lot of contact tracing. There's continuation of free testing for COVID, PPE, we're collecting supplies for that, in county, stockpiling that if people are having trouble with that, maybe getting supplies. Oakland County might be able to help through our Homeland Security. Finally, to get off, and also there's also the funding opportunity for the city of Oak Park and other cities, villages, and townships. We appropriated $32 million, and I'm looking forward to approving some bills from Oak Park. We already started doing that. At my last meeting last week, that's how fast these cities are getting their bills in, and I know that you'll be working on it. Finally, we're starting budget. Our county budget was given to us July 1st, and as finance chair, we will move into doing budget hearings. On Wednesday, July 15th, our Oakland County Executive, Dave Coulter, will be presenting the budget on GoToMeeting. And so if anybody wants to listen to it, it will be balanced 3-year ahead. We have done, just like every other government unit, cut back where we can so that we can be fiscally responsible and also service the residents the best that we can. That's a lot of information. Any questions for me?
And
Thank
Madam
you.
Mayor, I have a question.
Sure.
So the 32 million you mentioned that is going to help cities, townships, villages, what kind of bills will that enable us to cover?
So it has to be COVID related expenses. And ideally, we're asking that people submit to FEMA first, but FEMA only usually covers 75%, and that other 25% can come to this grant opportunity. And anything that was not budgeted before COVID, most is probably eligible, like the sanitizers, the, back to work, the temperatures, things, the hazard pay, the technology, that was required to set up to do virtual meetings. These are some of the examples that I know are covered.
Thank you.
Madam
Any
Mayor, I had a
other
question
questions?
too.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that, Helene. The $5 million that you mentioned for rental and utility assistance, for residents who are interested in getting more information about that, who should they call or where should they go to get that information?
Let me see if it's on my list. I know it's, okay. The easiest way to get access to all of these, I don't have a telephone number right in front of me, is to go to www.oakgov/COVID. And that leads you into grants. And there's a link and it has the laundry list of grant opportunities, the housing counseling. Or let me pull out my directory. It is our housing counselors, the same way that people would access our home improvement. Let me see if I can pull this up. I'm sorry, it's actually a total, oh, here we go. Here's the general number of the Oakland County Home Improvement Division, 248-858-0493. But the website would be more immediate and direct. So we actually have over $8 million to spend on housing assistance and utility assistance, which is extraordinary. But the need is extraordinary too.
Thank you
you.
so much. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. And thank you for all that you're doing.
The commission's been busy. Going on to number 9, special licenses. We have a request for a special event license and waiver of fees submitted by Mark Phillips, 13670 Nadine, for the 30th annual Nadine Street Block Club Party to be held July 18th, 2020. Is there a motion to approve this request?
So moved.
Motion to approve.
Okay, Radner and Edgar, correct? This is their 30th time doing this particular block club. And so they didn't go door to door and get permission from all the neighbors, partly because of the COVID problem. Is there any discussion on granting this special event license? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carried. We don't have counting reports. We do have a request to award the bid for the 2020 decorative fence project M695 to American Fence Company of Warren, Michigan in the amount of $351,850.50, including the alternate bid. Is there a motion to award this?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's Burns and Weiss. I wonder if, would it be the Assistant City Manager, Kevin Yee, who would discuss this, this item?
Yes, Madam Mayor, or I'd be happy to speak on it too.
You can take turns.
Kevin, why don't you fire away and I'll chime in as necessary.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. So this project is includes a few different areas. So I'll kind of go through what the project entails. As we've talked about for quite a while, we included a fence along 9 Mile Road, the south side of the Greenbelt area between Rosewood and Scotia. This area has a chain link fence with a lot of overgrowth in it. City crews and DTE have been removing a lot of that overgrowth, and we want to replace that fence with a more decorative vinyl fence. Part of the project is for that. There's also projects to include fencing around the city complex, part of which is the court. On the Coolidge side where the court employees park, there would be a decorative fence installed there, complete with automatic opener for their vehicles, and it would provide a secure parking area and also be neat and clean right on Coolidge. And then there is some additional fencing, including a couple of gates around the city complex as well.
Okay. There were, City Manager Tungay, did you have something to add?
No, Madam Mayor, I would just say this regarding the location of the fence on 9 Mile. You know, you and I have discussed this, but for the rest of the council, I'll just say that, you know, obviously we're still in the process of developing a strategy for how we intend to lay that down. You know, we're going to make sure to negate as much of a gap between the private properties and ours as we possibly can. With regards to the City Hall fence, I believe the court, through the court building fund, has agreed to pay for the court section. And I believe that's about $77,000 worth of this through the court building fund. And that, as Kevin mentioned, that would be more of the decorative fencing that we're talking about. The other portion of the City Hall fencing is, you know, we've talked about this many times, council members. In my view, this is a minimum standard that I think we have to adhere to make sure that our employees and visitors are safe.
If I may add, we also, the alternate bid was to replace the fence directly behind City Hall that is between the property owners behind City Hall and the city complex itself. So that fence is also a chain link fence that has a lot of growth in it, things like that. We want to kind of clean up that area and provide some privacy for those residents because obviously City Hall and public safety in particular is a 24-hour operation, and we want to provide that separation for the residents there.
So is that the same, remind me, is that the same kind of fencing that's on 9 Mile, or is this, what kind of fencing is this?
Correct. It is the same type of fencing that is along that Mile Road.
Mayor, that portion of it will be the same kind of fencing, but not the entire city complex fencing.
And discussions are going whether to replace the fence for the visitors, for the residents with this fence, or?
Well, I think you're referring to the 9 Mile Road fence. So we're, as I mentioned, I mean, we're in the process of developing a more clear-cut strategy for, you know, how we go about laying that fence down. Tonight, we're just asking for you to give us permission to award these bids. You know, obviously, there's a private property owner immediately adjacent to this 9 Mile linear park that we want to make sure that we're taking into account when we're putting up a fence. I mean, the idea here is to enhance their property, not to take away from it. And so we're going to come back to you with a further update on what our plan of attack is going to be for, you know, how we lay that down. And again, we're trying to minimize the possibility of a gap between the private fence and the one we're putting down.
And it seems like the same issue would be behind public safety. There's an existing fence.
Yes. Yep.
Take that down and put up the new one, or we?
Right. Yeah, it's almost the same issue. Yep. And, you know, here again, it's a matter of us formulating a plan of attack where, you know, it's possible that we'll be reaching out directly to these residents and working with, or trying to work with them to, you know, establish our fence as their back fence.
Right.
Not everyone's going to agree, obviously. And if that's the case, then we need to come up with a new strategy. So
I would think that would be such a deal, as getting a new back fence instead of having look through and see two. I mean, it just seems like it would be a bargain for the resident.
I would absolutely agree with you, Madam Mayor. And I would just say that it's always amazing to me. There are always a handful, few that maybe don't agree. And if that's the case, you know, the question then is going to become, do we build a jagged line along the back, or do we go a different route? So that's what we're in the process of deciding right now.
Got it.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, this is Councilmember Weiss.
if I could just ask, when in instances such as these, when you have fences that abut city property, whether that be public right of way or park space, are those fences, are they always the property of the resident? Are there some instances where they're the property of the city, or is it typically the fence is the resident's responsibility?
Well, you know, I think the Courtney's probably got a better answer than I do, but in my opinion, it's all over the place. I don't think there's any rhyme or reason. And, you know, when we talked about these fence projects, this is going on a couple of years ago. Some of you will remember this on council. We said right then and there that this was going to force us to begin deciding things that are going to be precedential in nature, because whatever we do now is what people are going to expect in the future. But as far as I know, I don't think there's any rhyme or reason. It seems to be all over the place. And, you know, we have the same problem on Greenfield, where we have a bunch of fences and different kinds of fences all linked up. I don't know, Courtney, if you want to weigh in on that as well.
Based on my analysis of the properties, it appears to me as though some of the fencing is located on the individual property owner section of the property. Although we would have to probably do some widespread survey work to make that determination with absolute certainty. But there is some parcels where the fencing is located on the city's easement. So it's really a mix, and the fencing, the goal of this project has been to establish some uniformity and increase the aesthetic appearance of the area. So it really will have to be approached on a parcel by parcel basis.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so that issue will be decided at a later time, and this is just awarding the bid. Are there any more questions or discussion before we vote?
Madam Mayor, one
Yes,
question.
Council-
So when would this project begin?
Kevin, I'm going to defer to you on that.
You're muted.
Oh, you're muted, Kevin.
I'm sorry. It could begin fairly shortly, but it really depends on what happens with these easements and what we're going to do with the property. So we have some things to work out on our end, but as far as the one holdup that they had is a decorative fence, I think has like a 4 to 6 week lead time on the ordering of it. But the rest of the fence is pretty readily available. So they could begin fairly soon. We just need to give them more direction in the go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Are we ready to vote on the bid? Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Burns,
Yes.
Councilmember Edgar,
Yes,
Mayor McClellan,
Yes,
Councilmember Radner,
Yes.
and Councilmember Weiss.
Yes.
motion carried unanimously. Brings us to item 12. First reading of an ordinance to amend section 6242, chapter 62, article 2, division 1, burning of the Code of Ordinances, City of Oak Park, that would remove the broad prohibition against outdoor burning to allow recreational fires and portable outdoor fireplaces using clean woods as otherwise permitted by the International Fire Protection Code. Is there a motion to approve the first reading?
So moved.
That's Mayor Pro Tem Burns. And is there a second?
Second.
That's Councilmember Weiss. For discussion, I understand that our fire marshal or Director of Public Safety is here tonight? Yes,
May I chime in first?
yes, please.
I don't know that we have our fire marshal, but obviously we have our director of public safety. But I want to just if I could speak real briefly to this, I know Courtney helped draft, our city attorney, Courtney, helped draft some of this new language. And I was not at the last city council meeting, as you may recall, but I want to make sure that I understand the intent of council. The intent is to legally allow for not open burning, but we're talking about like the portable fireplace unit burning, correct?
Fire pits, yeah.
As I understand it, it's the portable above the ground with a screen, protective screen over the top, not within 10 feet of a building or a fence, not directly under a tree or a wire. I mean, all of those, as far as I understand it, are part of the requirements.
I just want to make sure that, because that is where I understood things were with council. And again, I missed the last meeting, but to me, it's saying two things. It's saying it would allow recreational fires and portable outdoor fireplaces using clean woods. Because those are two separate, completely separate things in my estimation. I don't know if Courtney, if you want to weigh in on that, but.
What is a recreational fire?
The recreational fire language is meant to include fire pits as well as small fires that people could have in their backyards. It was my understanding that council was looking for somewhat liberal language to allow people to have these recreational fires within the confines of the existing code regulations, meaning that as long as they had the hose or the fire extinguisher within 100 feet, and met the required distance limitations from other residential structures, that would be allowed. We've also limited the materials that may be burned to the clean woods. We've defined clean woods, and the reason for that is that the state of Michigan regulates the burning of trash and rubbish materials, including leaves, and that would require an additional involvement of the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality because it contributes to certain pollutants in the air. So Eric, your reading is correct, except that there is a little bit more discretion given to property owners to allow the use of bonfires. I did see the comments that were made by our fire marshal where he had recommended that the council further limit this prohibition to just portable stoves and grills. That is something that is similar to what other neighboring communities have done with the lot sizes that are comparable to Oak Park. Public safety is, of course, our foremost concern. So the lot size in Oak Park is really what this language was designed to consider, because a lot of homes in Oak Park are close together.
Madam Mayor, may I speak to that?
Please.
A couple members of council have asked me questions about this, and Courtney, thank you for clearing that up. And one of the questions that I've been asked in the last few days was to look at kind of like, what are the other cities around us doing? And I was able to take just a pretty basic look, and it looks to me like Ferndale allows the open fires, but it requires residents to have a permit to do it. And it looks like Birmingham allows the fires, but says that open burning shall be prohibited when atmospheric conditions or local circumstances make such fires hazardous. One of the questions that was asked of me is, what about on a day like, I think today, where we have an ozone action day? I'm assuming that's in Birmingham's ordinance that a day like this, you wouldn't be able to do an open fire.
Right.
So I guess my question is, having said those things, council members, is there an opportunity for us to maybe beef this up a little bit to add that language?
So you're recommending adding with a permit and not on conditions not when atmospheric conditions don't permit it.
Correct. And it's not my place to recommend legislation, council members, but with all due respect, I think those two things are pretty important. And that's what, again, Birmingham and Ferndale are doing.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Weiss.
I would definitely be more comfortable with this ordinance too if it included language around ozone action days, prohibiting burning on those days. And then additionally, what we just discussed, having, contained fires within, portable stoves or structures, not open burns, not open fire pits. And also, I didn't see, I know we discussed it, and maybe it's somewhere else that I'm not seeing it, but the specifics in terms of distance from other structures.
Yeah, I think they mentioned it was 10 feet.
Okay, I just didn't see it listed in the
Madam Mayor.
ordinance here.
City Manager Eric Tungate.
Council members, just to speak to the distancing thing, and again, I'm randomly choosing Ferndale and Birmingham, but Ferndale has a 20-foot requirement from the nearest structure, and Birmingham has a 15-foot requirement from a structure or combustible material.
What the state has a sample ordinance. Attorney Kraus, what is the state recommendation for distance?
It is 10 feet, and to respond to Councilmember Weiss's comment, we have adopted the International Fire Protection Code already in section 6242 of the Code of Ordinances. And that fire protection code is rather lengthy, and we've only incorporated it by referencing the code and not entirely by reference. So perhaps if this goes forward, we could establish some type of easily followed guidelines that residents could look at for the website. But it is 10 feet, but we would also need to be looking at the specific lot dimensions in Oak Park. And I think the 20-foot requirement that Ferndale has is going to render a lot of parcels in Oak Park ineligible, because Oak Park does statistically have smaller parcels than neighboring communities.
I think 10 feet is the standard, correct?
Yes, correct.
The state standard.
Correct. That is simply a guideline in the fire protection code, although we are free to regulate based on the individual circumstances in the community. So we can add exceptions to our ordinance that provide for greater distancing if we need to do that.
I would like input from council on, are you okay with the permit? Adding the permit language to this.
Madam Mayor, this is a question I have. So every time a resident wants to use a portable fireplace, they would need to come to the city to get a permit, or would the permit last for a certain time period?
Oh, it would, they're always for a time period. Attorney Kraus, what would the standard time period be for a permit? Year?
There is nothing in the fire code designating a time period for a permit, but I think if my recommendation is that if you do consider that you consider an exception for grills and grilling devices, because I think that might be considered overly burdensome for residents, especially in the summer months.
Yeah, I didn't think that we had requested, or the language stated that the residents had to get a permit to burn the fire pit. I thought that was the point of us putting the ordinance together, so that, let's just say if it was cool tonight, I could go in the backyard and turn on my fire and burn my clean wood in my fire pit. I wouldn't have to go to the city to get a permit for it, correct?
No, it would never be a daily thing. It would be something that maybe it's inspected once a year. I don't know if there's a benefit to that.
How would you know who would have one unless they told us?
Right.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Weiss.
If I could, I mean, obviously there are many residents who currently have fire pits and they're not technically outdoor fire pits, metal pits that aren't technically allowed currently. I know a resident had sent a concern about I believe to all of council regarding the inhalation of smoke from fires by neighbors. I kind of like the permit idea because I think it gives us an opportunity, like if once a year a resident wants to say, okay, I want to have a fire pit, burn wood over the summer, maybe their next door neighbors have to sign off on that so that the neighbors in the immediate area who would be exposed to that smoke are okaying it as a potential idea to help eliminate some of the nuisance concerns that residents have.
There was a comment that you get one permit that allows you to have this. Somebody comes out and inspects it to start with, and if it's the right kind, then you just continue to use it. It doesn't even have to be renewed yearly.
Oh, okay.
I'm a little confused because I thought when we first talked about this, the whole purpose was just to allow the residents to burn fire pits. We didn't
Right.
say anything that they have to go and get a permit
Nope.
in order to do it. That's not what the neighboring communities are doing, is it?
No,
Yeah,
there's only one that's doing,
you only-
permits, and that's
I thought
for,
you only need a permit for a certain type of open fire, not for a fire pit. I thought that's what they just read in that ordinance. A permit is required for, I forget for which type of fire, but not for a fire pit. I think if you wanted to have a bonfire or something like that, I think, yeah, you should require, it should be required to get a permit, but a bonfire and a fire pit are two totally different things or situations. What do you, I mean, is that how you guys understood it, city manager? I mean,
Madam Mayor, may I just speak to that?
yes.
I can just say this. I know in the Birmingham example, they actually go on to further define recreational fires. And they say recreational fires are less than 3 feet in diameter and 2 feet in height. And I think what the permit would be a review to make sure that, you know, the fire pit is up to standards, that there's a fire extinguisher on hand if it gets out of hand and so forth. I don't know that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know that we're saying anybody should be allowed to have a bonfire.
No. No.
no. I mean, I guess my question is, so you guys are saying that in order to even have if I went and bought a fire pit, and
You don't
if
get to use it.
I'm sorry,
You don't get to use it. You got to go get a permit first.
so you have to get a permit first. Okay, that's what I wanted clarity on.
Mayor,
Well-
may I speak to that?
Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, council members, but I think what you're saying is you're talking about the possibility of a permit for recreational fires, not for the open, not the open pit, the
Fire pit.
fire pits, the wood burning units, we'll call them.
That's what they were saying, that you needed a permit for those, right?
The language says, let's see, we don't have, in our current language for this ordinance, we don't have anything about any permit or anything about atmosphere. We're just discussing those as possible additions. So it's the permit is under discussion. It's not in the current recommended ordinance for the first reading.
That this ordinance was created because of the discussion we had at our prior meeting.
Yes, that's correct.
And this ordinance, I guess this was the first reading. So now it sounds like we are dismantling it and reorganizing it again.
There are some recommended additions that we are discussing. We don't have to accept them. They're just,
Madam Mayor, may I offer my,
please
2
put
cents.
your 2 cents in.
I think the way I see it, I think it would be excessive and overly burdensome to require people to get permits.
Yeah.
I think that if in another 6 months or a year or 2 years, it's getting out of hand, we can require permits at that time. But I would think
Okay.
that this is the kind of thing that we can start without it and see what happens. You know, it's not like, you know.
It can be
it's not like-
amended later,
Right.
correct?
So that's number one. Number two, as far as if we have something in our ordinance which allows other organizations to create days on which our ordinances apply in different ways, this is just maybe me being over technical, but my question for our city attorney is that ordinance one that can be enforced, or is it unconstitutionally vague and ambiguous if we allow a non-governing body to decide today's the day we're not allowed to have fires, and then our ordinance says, yeah, okay, that whatever they say.
City Attorney Kraus?
I don't know that it would be considered unconstitutionally vague and ambiguous. I think the way that Birmingham's ordinance is written, that Eric used as an example, is asking people to use their individual discretion as to when and when not they should be having these recreational fires. The suggestion from Council Member Radner is that we not rely upon the assessment of third parties such as the state of Michigan for ozone action days. And perhaps a resolution to that would be that the city determines on a day-by-day basis, posting on its website, whether or not it's an appropriate day based on city assessment to have a recreational fire.
One second. Let me, I think I may have not been clear. I think that we should tell people to use their common sense. I don't think that we should, I think that we can include in our ordinance that we would want people to use common sense and be considerate about those things. I don't think that we should include it as an absolute prohibition that they can't, because then I think that I don't like having to look at a statute and then having to look somewhere else. The lawyer in me wants to look at a statute and know what's allowed and what's not allowed. So that's kind of where my head is at with that. And I mentioned that before. And I wish there was a way to mention it without strictly enforcing it, just to say, use your common sense. Don't be a fool. Don't be selfish. Let's not destroy the ozone over this, but at the same time, not make it an absolute prohibition.
Recommendation.
Right.
So
recommendation.
You've answered this once and I'm still not sure. I really am clear on what a portable outdoor fireplace is, fire pit it's called, but I'm not sure what a fire is and if we should allow it.
Yeah, I have the same reservations about this. I think the way that the attorney wrote it up, this proposed amendment is two separate things: a recreational fire and a so-called fire pit or portable fireplace. I'm uncomfortable with recreational fires the way it sounds. I mean, I don't think bonfires really belong in our city. That's just, I think we need to distinguish that or remove it from this proposal.
So can we remove the words recreational fires and just to allow portable outdoor fireplaces?
Madam Mayor, are you asking me?
Okay.
You guys make the laws, so you can do whatever you want. But, I think if you're asking my opinion is, I think you should strongly look at as a, idea as opposed to removing it, to maybe just limiting it the way Birmingham did, which is to say they have to be less than 3 feet in diameter and 2 feet in height. And the only way to make sure of that is to create a permitting structure where, we can do everything in our power to make sure that that's going to be the case. And you're never going to totally get it, obviously. Enforcement is always the issue.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Weiss.
If I could, I want to respectfully disagree with Councilmember Radner's assessment on the ozone action days. We tell people they can't park on the street during a snow emergency. I think we can tell people, if there's too much snow on the ground. I think we can tell people if the atmospheric conditions are unsafe, they can't burn fires. I would hope that we could rely on people using their common sense and basic decency to do the right thing too. But I do think that we need to have an enforcement mechanism in place in the ordinance if people are burning on days where it's not safe. If a neighbor is concerned that they can actually, do something about it.
Well, Madam Mayor.
Who is that? Is that Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes. Now, I totally agree with Councilman Ratner. However, and I understand what you're saying, Councilmember Weiss, but I don't think that should be put into the actual ordinance. We could do for that like we do with the other things, like don't use so much water at a certain time of day, or, we can remind people by sending out an announcement or putting it on the marquee, but I don't think it need to go inside of the ordinance.
Mayor.
City Manager.
Just to speak to that, council members, I think, one of the reasons I like the Birmingham language is because it does give us some wiggle room, and it says open burning shall be prohibited when atmospheric conditions or local circumstances make such fires hazardous. Yeah, it's good for the environment, but at the same time, it also limits fires, which is the whole point. Just so happens those two are one and the same oftentimes. I think if you want my opinion, I think you have to have some language there for us to be able to go out there and use our discretion in enforcing it to some extent.
I don't understand why we need to have a permit in place in order to be able to do that. We have all kinds of laws and ordinances in place that don't require permits. And if somebody violates the law, we send somebody out. And if it's violated, they do it. You don't have to get a permit to cut your grass, but if it's over 8 inches, we're going to cut it for you. There's no permit required there. There's all kinds of mechanisms that we have in place to ensure that we're enforcing the law. I don't understand why we need a permit for it. I don't like the idea of permits. Unless it's something which is really construction, you need a permit, obviously. Electricity, you need a permit. Plumbing, you need a permit. But to make a to have a bonfire in your backyard to roast some marshmallows, I don't like it. I just don't like it. And I might be wrong, and I might be outvoted. I don't know. I just don't like it.
Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Weiss.
I do agree with Councilmember Radner on this. I think as long as we are very specific in the language in terms of what we're talking about when we talk about these outdoor fire pits, what exactly the requirements are. I don't think we need to inspect every single one, but if there is an issue where someone's having a big fire in their backyard, we do have a way to enforce that. If it gets reported, we have the language in the ordinance specifying what the requirements are.
And if it's bothering a neighbor, they can call and it can be under the nuisance ordinance. Is that correct, City Attorney?
That's correct, Madam Mayor.
So if someone is bothered by it, the nuisance ordinance will serve to cover that. City Manager.
I'm sorry, council members, I'm speaking so much, but I just wanted to say, I absolutely agree with what Councilmember Weiss just said. If you don't want to have a permitting process, that's fine, but then put some of this beefed up language in there so that we can enforce it on that alone.
Yeah, I mean, if it'll be worded like very similar to what you read earlier, that's fine, because it tells people to use their common sense. And if you don't, then it tells people to use their common sense. And if you don't, there is a price to pay, or there are repercussions for it.
Are you talking about the 3 feet in diameter and 2 feet high?
Well, yes, the language that City Manager just read in regards to the types of fires, I guess, and the verbiage that's in there. It states right in there that if you don't adhere to this, there will be repercussions for your actions. So I think that's fine if we word it that way. I just did not want the verbiage to say just very blatantly, no burning of the fire pits on a high ozone day. But if they put it in the language that they have in the Birmingham.
When atmospheric conditions.
Yes, that makes sense.
Is this a motion to add to the proposed amendment the Birmingham verbiage? Can you read that into the?
Would you like me to read it, Madam Mayor?
Would you read that, please?
It just defines recreational fires as less than 3 feet in diameter and 2 feet in height. And then it goes on to say that open burning shall be prohibited when atmospheric conditions or local circumstances make such fires hazardous.
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that too. Do we want to specify though that the fire should be in a structure and not on, just on the ground?
I think it mentioned that earlier, didn't it? But this is just specifically for recreational fire.
Right. Right. This is not for the portable units you're talking about. This is for the recreational fire one.
So are we?
Can you say
So-
the language again? Sorry.
So recreational fires are less than 3 feet in diameter and 2 feet in height. And the other language is open burning shall be prohibited when atmospheric conditions or local circumstances make such fires hazardous.
Can I just ask our city attorney, make such actions hazardous? How? I don't see how that can be in a criminal ordinance, or even in a civil infraction ordinance. I don't see how that gives the reader notice of what conduct is illegal. Are we telling them to decide if it's hazardous? Is there a governing body who's going to decide if it's hazardous? Are we going to announce, like with snow emergencies, today it's hazardous?
The fire marshal will be responsible for the enforcement of that provision, by the way.
I'm not talking about enforcement. I'm talking about if today I want to go outside and make a fire in my backyard. Am I allowed to do it or not? Or is today a hazardous day? Where can I look to know if today it's legal to do or illegal to do?
Well,
where can I look to know if I'm allowed to do it or if I'm risking loss of life or liberty?
Well, during COVID, recreational fires were not permitted, for number one. And another example might be if it's determined that there's a drought, for example, one spark from a fire could create a lot more fires.
So you're explaining it in a way that if it's in the ordinance, it would make sense.
Yeah.
Like if you say if it's a declared drought, but instead of saying hazardous conditions, if we want to go down that road, I think that we need to be a little bit more specific as to when it's illegal.
Yeah.
We're talking whether something's legal or illegal. If we want to say it's illegal in a drought, then we can say if the city declares, we can just include language if the city declares it's hazardous. But rather than just say if it's hazardous, without saying how people know or what determines if it's hazardous, I might think it's hazardous and somebody else might think it's not.
Isn't the ozone report like on the Weather Channel all the time?
It's everywhere. The news reports that it's in the weather. There's all sorts of alerts that go out for ozone action.
It's not anything.
There was no language. There was no language about that though. In what Eric just read, there was no language about any ozone announcements in the state of Michigan or anything. It only said when it's hazardous. If such actions are deemed hazardous or something along those lines.
When atmospheric conditions, right?
Yeah, but right. So if it includes language when the state of Michigan declares that atmospheric conditions make it hazardous, then we know. Then the person's on notice when it's illegal. But if I'm watching, One News, if I'm watching CNN and it says there is an ozone, and then I watch Fox News and it says there's no such thing as an ozone, then who decides if it's illegal or not?
Well, I mean, we can also publish when there's an ozone action day and say it's an ozone action day. Don't burn fires.
Right.
Today. The same we do for snow emergencies.
For snow emergencies. That's what I think it should. But then I think it should be more clear language that if Oak Park declares that it's a hazardous day. Very similar to snow emergencies. We're not just going to tell people not allowed to park in the street ever if it's too snowy. We say if there's a declared snow emergency, get your car off the street. So I think we should have similar language if it's a declared hazardous day. And again, this could just be being over technical and over analyzing it because I spend very many hours of my day analyzing statutes and case law.
Madam Mayor, may I ask a question of the city attorney? Madam City Attorney, does the International Fire Code define atmospheric conditions, hazardous atmospheric conditions that you know of? Or Director Cooper?
No, it does not. And I would also note that ozone action days, when they are announced, they're not enforced per se by the state of Michigan. They are a recommendation. So I think to reconcile Councilmember Radner's concerns, probably the best way would be for the city to post ozone action days consistent with what the state is doing, and then discourage people from acting on those particular days.
I agree with that as well. I think,
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
and honestly, I think we should be doing that anyway, because we should be raising awareness when, because those are days where it's unsafe for certain people to go out or contribute to ozone pollution during those days, or it just may be unsafe to be outside for long periods of time for more vulnerable populations. So I think, we should be probably posting that anyway. And then in addition to that, we can put the language in the ordinance and make sure that when those days are declared, that the city is posting that and sharing that and reminding residents that it's not legal to burn, to have outdoor fires on those days.
I mean, I think I had mentioned that earlier, that we could do that. Well, that's what should be done along with the general language. If we have an ozone, if the state or the city declares an ozone day, we can put it on the marquee, or like we do in preparation for any other weather hazard.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree as well.
Okay, great.
So then are we amending the ordinance as described?
Do we, a point of order, Madam Mayor?
Yes.
And
If
this
we
maybe is a
to
question
amend it.
more, this is
Mhm.
maybe a question more for the city attorney. But are we able, I mean, we proposed a few different things. Are we able to amend this and vote on it now? Or should we allow the city attorney time to rework the language and bring it back at our next meeting?
That sounds like a recommendation.
I'm just asking the city, I'm asking the city attorney if she has, what she thinks, if she needs more time with it or not.
Given the strong opinions we've heard tonight on this particular issue, I would recommend that I circulate an updated draft to council members and then we reopen the discussion at the next meeting.
So then.
Can we,
Just procedurally, where do we go from here?
wait 1 second. Before we do that, can I just ask one more question, please? I'm sorry. If, and this is, I guess this is for our city attorney. If we approve the language tonight, just the first reading, can we make changes in the second reading, or do we have to go back to first reading if we make any changes?
If you make changes, it would have to go back to a first reading because
That's what I was afraid of.
Can I ask a question? Now, in the past, we've agreed to certain things with additional changes. Why can't we do it in this instance?
if you want to go line by line and designate so that we're specific for the minutes as to what sections you want and what language you want, we can certainly do that and avoid having to restart the process at the next meeting. I'm just concerned that given the opinions voiced here tonight, that we want to make sure that everyone is on the same page and that the ordinance is passed according to what everyone's understanding is.
So you're recommending having a first reading again next week?
That's
In 2
correct.
weeks at the
Correct.
next meeting. So City Clerk Norris, how do we proceed?
I don't have a problem with that, but it just seems like we're opening ourselves up to another hour debate.
Probably not wrong.
Because each time we
good
we real something, then we have the first reading. Oh, wait a minute.
That's what
They're
makes
not,
this
you know
fun.
what? They
That's
are
what- that's
rarely
the process, I
debated this
guess.
much. Usually it's pretty clear cut. So since there are strong feelings about this one, it ought to get more consideration. Normally, we kind of agree on the changes and it goes very quickly. If this is not one of those cases, then we need to take more time. So City Clerk Norris, how do we handle this? We have a motion and a second, and we are,
My understanding would be, and I'll defer to the city attorney, but we have that motion on the floor as is, so we would need to vote on it up or down. There's no amendment.
Can't we withdraw the motion? Or
can the
table it?
maker- Can the maker of the motion withdraw the motion?
It belongs to the group now.
Can we make a motion to withdraw the motion and then I'll vote on that?
Yeah, that's what I thought we can do. And maybe I'm wrong. I think we've done that in the past.
That would be-
City Attorney, do you have anything procedural to say?
Procedurally, you could also vote to not approve the first reading, and then we could go back and have another first reading at the next meeting.
So we will vote, and we will vote not to approve, and then we'll start again. This
Can we
being
make
an
a motion to
ordinance, it
just,
can't, this being an ordinance, it can't be tabled.
oh, okay.
Okay, so City Clerk Ed Norris, please take a vote on the motion as it stands. And we will vote it down and bring it back. That's fine?
Absolutely. I will start with Councilmember Edgar.
No.
Mayor McClellan,
No?
Councilmember Radner,
No.
and Councilmember Weiss,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Burns.
No.
Okay, so the motion did
Now,
not
now
carry.
the record's going to look like we all hate bonfires.
Watch
Until the
for
next meeting.
lots of emails. Watch for lots of emails.
That's right. That's right.
All right, thank you. We are now at the, we've given the city attorney plenty of time, but do you need anything to add on another topic?
I don't have anything further, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. All right, so then we're to the city manager portion. City Manager Eric Tungate.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. I would like to start by asking Director Van Vleck to join me for an update, 14A census update presentation, please.
Right. Good
There she
evening. Good evening, council. I'm going to give me 1 second to pull this presentation up. I'm bouncing between the agenda presentation and a few others. Okay. Okay, so at the last council meeting, the mayor requested an update on the 2020 census. So I've put together a presentation just to give you guys all a little update on where we're at and the timeline of the census as things have changed because of the coronavirus. Can you guys see my screen?
Not yet.
No?
Oh, there it
Okay.
is.
There you go.
All right. Hold on. Okay, there we go. All right. Okay, so we're just going to go over again. You guys have seen a presentation like this before, but just as an informational piece for the public, we're going to go over again why the census is important, talk about it a little bit, and then give you guys an update. So among many other important ways the census data is used, it determines how many representatives each state has in Congress, and it's also used to draw district boundaries. Additionally, the census count has also determines how federal government will allocate over $675 billion in federal funds. And it also helps the state determine how it allocates local revenue sharing. So that's all per capita. This includes road funding, which makes up, this also includes road funding and makes up a significant portion of the city's budget.
And if people don't participate in the census, that budget is cut, assuming that there are fewer people in the city of Oak Park.
Yes, absolutely. So people are always question kind of what is going to be asked. And for a while, I know this was before the census was out, there was a question as to what would be on there. So just so everyone's aware of the questions, there's 7 of them. And you can see them here. How many people are living or staying in your home as of April 1? Is your home owned or rented? What is the sex of each person in the household? What is the age and race of each person in the household? Is any person in the household Spanish, Latino, or Hispanic origin? And then what is the relationship of each person in the household to the one central person? So there's only these 7 questions. It's also important to note what you would not be asked on the census or what a census worker would never ask you. So a survey and census employee and or a census employee would never ask you for your social security number, for a monetary donation, anything relating to a political party, or for your bank and credit card information. So we put this on here just to make people aware that there are scams out there. And if anyone was to ask you these questions, it's a red flag and it has nothing to do with the census. We also want to point out that the census information is completely confidential. The Census Bureau cannot release any identifiable information about individuals, households, or businesses, even to law enforcement agencies. So personal information is kept completely confidential. The Census Bureau is actually bound by federal law to protect your information, and your data is used only for statistical purposes. All Census Bureau staff have to take a lifetime oath to protect your personal information, and any violation of that oath comes with a penalty of up to $250,000 and or up to 5 years in prison. So we're going to go over the different ways that you can respond. By now, all households should have received an invitation to respond several times. So they sent out several different postcards. If you hadn't responded up until last week, I believe they sent a last postcard. You should have also received at this point, if you didn't respond online or by phone to any of those postcards, you should have also received a paper one in the mail. If you had responded prior to that, you wouldn't have received the traditional paper survey, but if you hadn't, you would have also received that. You can still respond. You can complete the survey at www.my2020census.gov, or you can call this number 844-330-2020. If you go to that website, you can find this phone number, and they also have different phone numbers depending on your language preference. So if you go to that website, this number is available for English speaking, but there's also, I believe there's 15 different phone numbers that range from Russian to Japanese to all different types of languages if English is not your first language. And the timeline has changed a little bit. So because of the COVID pandemic, the original timeline for the census, we would have been coming almost to the end of it now. But because of everything that happened, things have changed a little bit. So self-response, which can be done via phone, online, and by mail, will be available through October 31st. So this website will be up and running. That phone number will be available for you to respond. I should also note, I forgot to say that on that postcard, you would have been given an identification number. But if you can't find your identification number, if you can't find that postcard, if you go to that website or call that phone number and give your address, you can be identified that way also. So don't worry if you can't find that identification number. And you'll be able to respond, you'll be able to self-respond through October 31st. And then what they call non-response follow-up, is when census employees are going door-to-door canvassing for those who hadn't responded yet. That's going to start August 11th. And we'll go through October 31st. So be on the lookout. We will post on Facebook and we'll also post on our website. We have a census page on our website. We'll share the information of when census workers will be out, and we'll remind you that they won't ask certain questions. And then also this information we'll put out there on Facebook when canvassers start going out there, how to identify a census worker. So obviously, people can be a little bit, for good reason, apprehensive about when someone comes to their door. So to identify a census worker, you look for a couple of things. So they'll always have an ID badge on them with their name, photograph, Department of Commerce watermark, and an expiration date. They should be carrying an official Census Bureau bag with electronic device in it. And they'll only be out between the hours of 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. So anything before or after that, it would not be a census employee. And like I said, we'll continue to put this information out specifically in August through October when they're out, to remind people that they're out there. You know, if you haven't answered, if you haven't self-responded, please respond to them, or you can still do it by phone or online. So we're going to take a look at Oak Park's response rate over the years. In 2000, our response rate was 82%. Unfortunately, in 2010, that went down to 76%. So what that means is that for the past 2 decades, the city of Oak Park has not been receiving as much federal or state funding as we could and should have. So going back to the way that census data is used, as the mayor mentioned, a lot of our funding is done per capita. So when we're not showing our full population, it's really hurting us. So we want to continue to echo that to fill out the census survey is to give us a better look at our population, which helps us in many ways, but maybe most specifically, and maybe arguably one of the most important ways, is by funding. So the good news here is that our self-response rate as of July 31st, that was the the last time they had updated it, when I looked this morning, was our self-response rate. So all the people who have filled out the census either online or over the phone or had mailed in their survey, we're at 75.6%. So that's great because we've already passed, or we're just about there, to our 2010 response rate. And if you can see here, we're actually doing better than the state as a whole. But I think at the very least, we would like to beat our 2000 response rate of 82%. And I think it would be even more impressive if we had the #1 self-response rate in the state. Currently, we're ranked number 104, and some of our close neighbors are beating us. So Madison Heights has a self-response rate of 76.6%. Troy has 79.3%, which is impressive since they have such a large population. Clawson is at 84%, and Huntington Woods is actually ranked #1 in the state right now with 91.9% response rate. So
Woods
the
is
call
actually
that,
number 3 in the country, I believe, right now for their response
yeah, I
rate.
think you're right. Yep. So the call to action to everybody today is we're challenging you. We want to challenge everyone, all of the residents, to complete the census and encourage at least 2 of your neighbors to do the same. We would like some of that. We want to be able to boast that we're the #1 in the state, or the #1 in the county, and at least that we beat our 2000 number. So again, you have until the October 31st to respond. And if you don't do so, then please be on the lookout for those census workers.
We have a
that's it.
question. How does one confirm that their census form was received?
You can, if you go on to that same website. So I'll bring that back up real quick. If you go onto that same website, my2020census.gov, and if you put in the identification number that you have, or you can call, and you put in the identification number that you were given, or your address, if you've lost that number, it won't let you fill it out if you've already filled it out. So that would be how you would verify. That's it.
Crystal?
Yeah.
I just want to add to, for people who kind of want to see where we're going, I'm looking at the SEMCOG map right now. I have great news because we've gone up 0.1% since you looked this morning. We're at 75.7% right now. And for people who like to track that data, SEMCOG does keep, that's the Southeast Michigan Council of Governments. They keep a very detailed census map. You can look at all of the communities in the area and where they're at. And 2 of our neighbors, Huntington Woods, we already mentioned, but also Pleasant Ridge is also right up there too.
Yeah.
With, I think they're at 89.4%, so almost 90%. So we definitely need to do some work to get up to those numbers as well.
The Census Bureau has a site as well, which I'm assuming is where SEMCOG's getting their data from. And they're both probably really useful, but the Census Bureau has one as well. And I forget what the address is, but if you Google 2020 census response, it'll show you can see, same thing, you can see how we're doing, how other states are doing, how other regions and counties and whatnot are doing. So it can be interesting.
Okay, thank you, Crystal. Crystal, you're up for the next one too. 14B, please, millage renewal presentation.
Okay, so I apologize for anyone who had to listen to this already, and I'll try to make this, I'll try to get this done as quickly as possible. Give me 1 second. Okay. All right, can you guys see the screen yet?
Nope, not yet.
Okay. Wait.
There we go.
Okay. So the purpose, we gave you guys an update, or we gave everyone an update at the last council meeting, just a little short informational update on these 3 millage renewals that we have, that the city has on the August 4th ballot. So some of you may have already received your ballot, your absentee ballot. And we just want to make sure that all residents are informed about what these 3 millages are, what they're for, and why they're important. So the point of this presentation is to do that. We did have a town hall just before this, so we had a few people who joined us for that. So again, I apologize if you're listening to this for the second time, but it is important information. So hopefully it's not too bad. All right. So first, if I can get this to work. Okay, so first I'm going to go through, it's bouncing. I apologize, I'm getting a little bit of a lag. So first we're going to go through each of the millages. I just want to go over each one, what they're for and why, kind of their history. So the first one is our public safety millage renewal. We want to emphasize that all 3 of these are millage renewals. None of them are tax increases. So they're a straight renewal of the current rate. The public safety millage renewal began in 2000 or was originated in 2010. At that point in time, residents approved a 10-year millage levy of up to 1 mil to support public safety operations, equipment, and personnel. Without this renewal, the millage expires after this last summer tax bill, which just went out. The millage renewal is for 0.599 mils, so just under 1 mil for 10 years. Again, that's its current rate, so it's not a tax increase. Over the last 10 years, this millage has helped the city make significant and meaningful investments in public safety. For instance, in important initiatives like our community policing, including our community resource officers, the Citizens Academy, Public Safety Open House, as well as important investments in equipment like bulletproof vests and fire truck maintenance, just to name a few. The second millage on the ballot, or millage renewal on the ballot, is our recreation millage renewal. Again, this is a renewal, not a tax increase. Also in 2010, residents passed a 10-year millage of 0.5 mils or half a mil to fund personnel, equipment, and operations of the recreation department. Without the renewal of this millage, it will also expire after this last summer tax bill. The renewal is for 0.4799 mils or just under half a mil for the next 10 years. This millage has helped fund some of the recreation amenities the community has come to know and love, including the Summer Blast, the 4th of July Parade, Fun Fest, concerts in the park, Boo Bash, Winter Fest, as well as recreational programming for residents, including our many senior programs, our youth summer camps, athletics, and the community pool. If this millage is not renewed, the city will lose an estimated $250,000 of revenue annually dedicated to recreation operations and programs. And I feel like I missed it on the last slide, but if the public safety millage is not renewed, that would amount to $500,000 of revenue annually dedicated to public safety, personnel operations and equipment. And the last millage renewal that you'll see on the ballot is for the library. Again, this is a millage renewal. It's not a tax increase. Same as the last ones. In 2010, residents also approved a 10-year millage of 0.5 mils to fund personnel, equipment, and operations of the library. Without the renewal, the millage will also expire after this July 1, 2020 property tax bill. The renewal is for the current 0.4799 or just under half a mil for 10 years. This millage has helped fund the many library programs and amenities offered over the years, including Sunday concerts, adult computer classes, movie nights, game nights, story time, the public computer lab, the teen center, and the always expanding collection of literature. If this millage is not renewed, the city will lose an estimated $250,000 of revenue annually that is dedicated to funding library operations, programs, and personnel. Okay, so now that we've gone over the history of the millages, we're going to talk a little bit about why they're important. And in order to explain the importance of these renewals, we first have to give a brief explanation of the relationship between property taxes, taxable value, and the city's millage rate. So first of all, the main source of revenue to the city is property taxes. They make up 60% of the city's revenue. So how are property taxes calculated? Every property owner in the city pays property taxes based on two things: the taxable value of the property multiplied by the millage rate. The millage rate means the total of all millages in effect in the city. So for instance, these 3 millages that we're discussing today are just 3 of the millages that make up the total city millage rate. The second part of the equation is taxable value. Taxable value of a newly purchased property is approximately 50% of your property's market value. So you can see an example tax bill that we've put here. Just to make the math easy, a house with a $200,000 property value has an estimated taxable value of about $100,000. And with the city's current total millage rate of 34.5, that's the city's millage rate, you multiply that rate by the taxable value, and then you divide that by 1,000 to determine the total amount of property taxes owed. So in this scenario, the taxes are $3,450. So this is how we calculate the amount of property taxes owed to the city from one property. The millage rate is basically the only thing in this equation that the city has any control over, and typically only with voter approval. Taxable value of existing property in the city is basically completely out of our control, which leads us to the next slide. The city's total taxable value and the revenue that it generates to the city. The amount of property tax revenue that the city brings in annually is found by multiplying the city's total taxable value by the current millage rate. So in the last slide, we calculated property taxes of just one property. But to find the city's total taxable value, you add up the taxable value of every property in the city, and that's the city's total taxable value. When the Great Recession came through and slashed property values, it also slashed taxable values, and the city took a huge hit in the amount of revenue that was coming in. So what the graph here indicates is revenue generated from one mill over the years. This is an easy standard that we use to show how the city's total taxable value has changed over the years and how it relates to the revenue that it generates. So on the right side of the graph, you can see that in 2008, before the recession, the total taxable value for the city was $728 million. That means that one mill brought in $728,000. But when the effects of the Great Recession finally hit in 2014, the total taxable value of the city decreased by $300 million. And one mill then only brought in $432,000, which is a 40% decline from 2008. Now, while we've seen a slow increase in taxable value in the city, we're still not close to being where we were before the Great Recession hit. In fact, taxable value, which is currently $522 million, which you can see on the right side of the graph, is still only 70% of what it was in 2008, meaning that one mill only brings in 70% of the revenue that it generated in 2008. Now, it's a common misconception that since property values have almost made a comeback, so would taxable value, but that's untrue because the state limits the amount of revenue growth realized by the city. Due to the Headley Amendment and Proposal A, the growth of taxable value of existing property is limited to the rate of inflation, or 5%, whichever is less. So while property owners have seen their market values make a comeback, which is great, their taxable values have not increased much since the recession hit, if you're living in the same home. So in 2008, when taxable value was high, the city was able to operate on fewer mills because each mill brought in significantly more money. These millages that we're discussing today, which were originally voted on 10 years ago, when taxable values were beginning to decrease, are how the city has been able to continue its excellent services through that time. So I hope that wasn't your eyes aren't glazing over too much. Additionally, the city has experienced significant revenue loss over the years due to the decrease in state revenue sharing. As you can see in this chart, in 2001, on the very left-hand side, Oak Park received $5 million in state revenue sharing, but that amount has greatly decreased over the years. Last year, the city received $3.5 million, and this year, the city only received just over $3 million. Since 2002, the city has lost over $23 million in state revenue sharing if you compare it to what we received in 2001. It is important to note that the effects of the COVID pandemic on the state revenues is partially to blame for the deep decrease in revenue sharing this year. So that's why the number went down to 3 million. But it's just a further hit to the city. So while the city has struggled to find new sources of revenue to make up for this loss, we're also facing other challenges. The costs associated with our long-term liabilities, including our pensions and retiree healthcare, are rising faster than our revenue. The city has worked hard over the years to cut costs and find savings. We've listed some of the things here, and just to briefly go over them, we've instituted citywide hiring freezes. We've refinanced debt, resulting in millions of dollars in savings for taxpayers and a decreased millage rate. Increased pension contributions of employees, so employees have to pay more into their pensions. We've we've eliminated retiree healthcare and pensions for general employees. We've seen a reduction in healthcare costs due to a comprehensive wellness program and clinic for employees. The creation of an economic development department has brought new development and tax dollars to the city. We actively solicit grants and sponsorships to help offset the costs of programs and amenities. And we implemented furloughs during the coronavirus pandemic to help offset the revenue loss experienced. So these are just a few of the steps that the city has taken over the years to continue to offer the amenities and services that residents desire and deserve while combating the obstacles in our way. So probably the most important slide for some of you is what does this mean for the taxpayer? First, we can't stress enough that these are both millage renewals. They won't result in a millage increase. Even if both of these millage renewals pass, residents will actually see a decrease in the city's millage rate due to statutory millage rollbacks, Headley and Proposal A, like we talked about earlier. And you'll see a further decrease in city millage rates next year due to recently refinanced bonds. Excuse me. In fact, the city millage rate has decreased by 8% since 2015 due to statutory rollbacks and the refinancing of debt. And what you're looking at here is an average bill. So when you look at an average bill before the Great Recession in 2008, the average Oak Park homeowner who lived here, I want to specify, who lived here in 2008 and still lives in the same house now, actually paid more in taxes than they would today. What this average bill comparison is depicting is the average taxable value of homes in 2008. So we took total taxable value of homes, we took the average of that in 2008, which was much more than the average taxable value today. And we multiplied it by the millage rate. In each of those years, which includes not just the city millages, but all other taxing jurisdictions like the county and the school district, et cetera. The reason for this huge difference is because, as we talked about earlier, the average taxable value of a house today is much less than it was in 2008, even if your market value has bounced back. But it's also because of the steady decrease of the city's millage rate over the past 5 years. So in summary, the renewal of these millages will mean a continued revenue source for 3 important service areas of the city at no tax increase to residents. But if these millages are not renewed, it will result in a revenue loss of approximately $1 million annually. So $1 million every year. All right. And so to wrap it up, no matter how you choose to vote, we just want to remind you all to vote on election day, which is Tuesday, August 4th. All of our precincts will be open from 7 a.m. till 8 p.m. with safety precautions put in place due to the pandemic. But also remember that anyone can vote absentee now. So in order to receive an absentee ballot, you must be registered to vote. To request an absentee ballot or to register to vote, you can visit the city website at www.oakparkmi.gov. To find election information, you can find it under city departments. Then you find city clerk, and under city clerk, there's a tab for election information. Or you can call our clerk's office at 248-691-7544. And last but not least, this presentation is just one of a few that we'll be giving. So like I said earlier, we had a town hall at 5:30 today where we gave this same presentation, but it was a little livelier with the help of Director Cooper and Director Stasiak and Director White Owens. We'll have 3 more town halls. So you can see them right here. One's tomorrow at 10:30. Then we have 2 towards the end of the month. To find the Zoom information for these, you can go to the city's website, and on the city's main page, you'll see a button right there in the middle that says millage renewal information. So there's a web page dedicated to these renewals. So you'll find information on the renewals themselves, as well as Zoom information for all the town halls. We've also sent out a postcard to all households in the city, and they should be receiving them this week. We're going to send out a second postcard towards the end of the month. You'll probably see quite a few Facebook posts, some of them with videos with our great directors, and please feel free to share them. If you see one of our posts, please share it. And we have flyers out everywhere also, so look out for those. So that is it.
Crystal, thank you so much. Very much appreciated. We're going to move on to 14C, and council members, 14C is a employee lease agreement with the library. As many of you know, prior to the pandemic, we were right in the heat of the process of reconfiguring our what was at the time our expired agreement with the library board. This is a newly construed version of that agreement. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. This does clarify and extend that out and defines the responsibilities of the library board and the city very clearly. And I very much appreciate Crystal was very involved, Vicki Brooks, our attorneys, and of course the library board and their legal staff as well.
So we need this approved.
Yes, and the library board has already voted to approve this, Madam Mayor.
So the city council needs to vote to approve the employee lease agreement with the library. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
That's Weiss.
Second.
Second. Mayor Pro Tem. Is there discussion? People
Yeah, I
were-
have a question.
Yes.
Mayor, you attend the meetings with the library board, correct?
Yes, we do. Yep.
And I know Councilmember Weiss was on the library commission, but who is it now? Councilman Ratner?
No, that's me.
Here. Mayor.
Oh, you? Oh, okay. Well, are you okay with it, Mayor?
Yes, yes, I am. This has been worked on for a really long time. I think it's fair to the library. It's fair to the city. All the parties are comfortable with it. And I think we can go ahead and feel good about the next 10 years of the library.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I just want to thank you, and I want to thank the rest of the library board. I know this is something that when I was on the library board, we were working on. It's been a work in progress for a very, very long time. And our city attorneys, city manager, Director Brooks, everyone involved, just thank you for all the time and energy and thought to this.
Our
A long journey.
Our library board has been working very hard with all involved and trying to do the very best for the city and for the library. And a lot of work, many, many meetings, and much soul searching and researching and went into this agreement. So are we comfortable to vote? City Clerk Ed Norris, please.
Mayor McClellan,
Yes.
Councilmember Radner.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry if I could just interject quickly. He had texted me that he was on his phone and it was dying. I think he may have lost the connection.
Oh, okay. I'll come back. Councilmember Weiss,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Burns,
Yes.
Councilmember Edgar.
Yes.
We're okay with Councilmember Radner. Did you make it?
Four is enough to pass this?
That's correct.
Okay, so this motion passes. And we're next on the interlocal agreement.
Yep, thank you, council members. 14D, Crystal, I'm going to turn over to you, but I just wanted to say this is in relation to the CARES Act grant funding that Commissioner Zach was speaking about earlier. We have to have an interlocal agreement with the county prior to submitting our application to see these reimbursement funds. Crystal, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, correct. I think the commissioner went over most of the information, but simply Oakland County, the CARES Act funding has come through a couple different ways. We're going to be able to apply for it at the state level for some specific things. We also have FEMA funding. Our application has been submitted. But in addition, Oakland County is funneling some of their CARES Act funding to the local governments. The Board of Commissioners and County Executive have allocated $30 million of those funds And she spoke about the different things that they will cover, including the 25% that FEMA does not cover. So everything that we submitted to FEMA, they'll cover 75%, and we can apply for the county to pay for the additional 25%. And as city manager mentioned, we just need this interlocal agreement as in place for them to be able to transfer funds to us. You'll also notice that we're requesting city council approve it, contingent upon review of the city attorney. Our city attorney, Ebony Duff, has reviewed it at this point, and she confirmed that she has no problem with it. It was a pretty straightforward contract or interlocal agreement.
So you need approval from city council.
Yeah.
Approve the interlocal agreement with Oakland County for CARES Act funding.
So moved.
That's Burns. Is there a second?
Second.
Weiss. Is there discussion, questions? Do we need a roll call?
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Councilmember Radner, you back? Councilmember Weiss,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Burns,
Yes.
Councilmember Edgar,
Yes.
Mayor McClellan.
Yes, motion carried.
Thank you, council members. Mr. City Clerk, if you could take 14E, please.
Sure, I will. Council members, before you have another interlocal agreement with Oakland County to provide ballot counting services. There was recent election legislation that was just recently passed that allows several things, but one is allows Oakland County to assist their municipalities in counting their absentee voter ballots. And but to do that, we would need this agreement passed tonight. This is a particularly good legislation in our view because of the pandemic situation, and also the fact that we're just receiving so many absentee ballots. This is a great way to proceed with counting. So this would be a process that would continue for this election, also for November, and all elections in the future. One of the options, we do have an option to opt out of this if we choose to in another year, where we count our own. And one of the great things there's no cost for this service at this point in time. So it's kind of a win-win situation. So what we would need is an approval for the agreement with the Oakland County to provide ballot counting services and to authorize the city manager to sign the agreement on behalf of the city.
Okay, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
That was Edgar and Burns. I just have a question about, do they send someone to each city to help with the counting, or how just physically does that happen?
Well, physically, the ballots that have been returned up until the day before the election actually would be taken to the county. So there's a process for that, and they would have facilities where they actually count the ballots there. It might just a note that some people will ask, well, what happens with the AV ballots that come in on election day? There's a process by which those are counted in the precincts. So it's just the county would have the opportunity to have the high-speed counters available to them, which are not available to us. So it's a great opportunity for us, actually.
And it's free.
It is now.
I have a question.
So we have a motion, we have a question. That's Mayor Pro Tem Burns.
Well, the question is not exactly about the absentee ballot, but it is about voting. So
Oh, well, I can answer that.
yeah, we can vote first before we
Okay.
move to the next item.
Sure.
Oh,
I do have a question about this item before we vote on it, if I may.
yes, Councilmember Weiss.
So, will we be receiving then those results back in real time from the county if we're reporting? Like, how does that work? Does it just get reported directly to the state? Or does it get reported back to you, city clerk, and then you report it out? How does that process work?
No, that portion of the AV counting would be reported basically to the county to the county, which then goes to the state. So it wouldn't be any different
Okay.
than what we would normally see on election night.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Burns, did you want to ask your question at this time?
Sure, if you guys don't mind. I received my absentee ballot last week. And then I received this in the mail today from the Voter Participation Center.
Mhm.
And this is your voter registration application is inside. Why am I receiving this if I've already voted and I'm already registered and I received my absentee ballot? Does
Well,
anyone?
you're
you
going to
know,
see this it's an outside agency or group that is making sure that you vote absentee and have an opportunity. So that is something we don't have control over.
Yeah, this is a voter registration application.
Well,
Can I just cross this since I'm already registered?
Absolutely. And sometimes you'll see absentee ballot applications that are come from parties, and that'll continue and will be particularly you're going to see a lot of that come closer to November as well. So
Okay.
it's basically outside agencies that want to make sure that you're voting and
Okay.
registered to vote. So if you have your ballot, you're in good shape. We suggest that we do want you to bring those back to us as soon as you can.
Okay.
And just to mention that to avoid the mail, we do have a drop box in the front of City Hall, which we're encouraging residents to use. So
Always utilize it.
If you vote, if you just bring your ballot to the City Hall, you don't have to worry about a stamp or will it get there on time or not. You just drop it off right at City Hall. Easy. Are we ready to vote then?
Madam Mayor, I have one more question and I
Yes.
apologize.
No problem.
Mayor Pro Tem made me think of it. If we're receiving, if any residents, because some have asked me about this, if they receive because the state sent out applications, absentee applications. If you receive in the mail an absentee application for someone who no longer lives at that address, what should the resident do with that?
well, typically that would mean that that person's still registered at that address, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. They can simply send it in to us with a note that that person doesn't live there any longer. That
So
would-
drop it in the city drop box with a note on it?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Are we ready for a roll call then?
Councilmember Weiss,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Burns,
Yes.
Councilmember Edgar,
Yes.
Mayor McClellan.
Yes,
and
motion carried.
Councilmember Radner. Did we get him back? Okay. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to turn it over 14F to Director Kim Maroney. But before I do, I want to just let everybody on council know that Kim Maroney is going to continue to be our Director of Economic Development. Thank goodness.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Eric
there's
told
some,
me he'd pick me up and drive me to work every day, so I'm staying.
that's right.
I said she could use the city helicopter to commute if she
Yeah.
needed to, but that was all it took. But thank goodness Kim is sticking around, so I'm very happy about that.
We have
Right.
some very happy business owners.
And council members, I'm so happy you're staying, Kim. I'm sorry, but I'm not.
Well, I am very happy to be staying, to be honest with you. It was really hard to even try and say goodbye, but Eric twisted my arm and I am staying.
Good.
Good. Way to go, Eric.
Do what you got to do, Eric. Thank you.
Right. Always, always, just getting it done.
Very
Kim,
good.
if you could do 14F that for us, that would be great. Thank you.
Yes, so in front of you is a facade grant for 12930 Capitol Avenue. It is for SFT Food, otherwise known as Brown Dog Creamery. They are looking to replace one of their doors on their facility. They have some other upgrades that they've already done and some other ones they have planned for the future. The money is available in the budget for the facade grant in the amount of $1,830.02. I am asking that City Council approve it in the 2019-2020 fiscal year. It was my error that he had the paperwork in time. However, I missed it during the COVID pandemic in my emails. So I don't want to prevent him from doing future improvements for this fiscal year. So hopefully we can approve it for this past fiscal year.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve this facade improvement grant as stated?
So moved.
That's Burns. Is there a second?
Second it.
That's Edgar. Thank you. Discussion of is this the creamery that provides free ice cream?
They're not the ones that do it for the Public Safety Patrol. They're a new company in Oak Park, and they've been a really good contributor to the city so far and hope to do more in the future. So they just came to our community about 5 months ago.
Wow. Wow. And what do they sell? What?
So they created the concept called Barler, which is a restaurant slash bar concept. And the ice creams they create are extremely unique, where they bake all of their products on site, which is actually now in Oak Park, and then blend them with their ice cream to create unique blends. And now they are selling them in a lot of retailers across the state.
So this is a place where this is made, not a retail.
Correct. So it's a manufacturing facility right now, but we're in discussions to see what we can do for more.
Great. Great. Can't be better news than more ice cream in Oak Park.
No, and it's the best.
Oh. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I have a question for Kim.
Yes, that's Councilmember Edgar.
So Kim, when you say unique blends, what are we talking about?
Oh gosh, I didn't even know where to begin. They brought a few samples to me. They'll make some, let's say, shortcake, and then they'll blend it with like a, they've even mixed in some like whiskey blends into it. So they've done that. They'll do like key lime pie with some shortbread, brownies with like a vanilla custard type blend. It's all over the board. They have a unique marketing team that they get together and create new blends, I believe once a month, but then they have their favorites that come back all the time.
And where
That's
can
great.
we get this?
So I will have to get you a list of all the retailers that have it right now, but they also have Barler locations and a few other sites. I believe Farmington Hills. I'm trying to think what the second location is, and I can't off the top of my head. I'll send it to
Wonderful.
all the council members.
Well, tell them welcome, and we'd be happy to sample anything that they.
I will let them know. Yeah. All the
Okay. Roll call, please.
Great.
Mayor Pro Tem Burns,
Yes.
Councilmember Edgar,
Yes.
Mayor McClellan,
Yes.
Councilmember Radner. You'll didn't make it back. Okay. Councilmember Weiss. Councilmember Weiss.
Got three.
I do have three, so we're good.
Three is enough to pass then.
Okay, Director Maroney, 14G, please.
So the second item is another facade grant application for 14721 11 Mile Road. Typically in our facade improvement program, we require that the actual grant is approved prior to any work commencing. As I was working through this process with the owner of the building, I drove past it to check on the site, as I usually do before I submit it for city council approval, and noticed that they did do some of the work. They have done the first coat of paint on the property, but they still have some additional work to do. So I am bringing it to council for them to approve only a portion of what's left to be done on the property, not what's already been done, because you must get council approval prior to any work being done. So what I'm asking council to approve is the work for tuck point and the second coat of repainting of the exterior of the building and adding some shiplap around the door of the building in the front.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve this facade improvement grant?
So moved.
Burns, and second?
Seconded.
Edgar, Burns and Edgar, okay. This is a Realtor?
This is an actual business owner. They have two businesses that operated out of this building.
Okay, all right. Any discussion, questions? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Edgar,
Yes.
Mayor McClellan.
Yes.
I'm still looking for Councilmember Radner.
Councilmember Weiss, her email cut out and she's trying to enter through the phone. So whoever is hosting.
I just let her-
Councilmember Weiss is back in right now. I just let her back in.
And
Sorry about that. Technical difficulties.
and are you prepared to vote? Councilmember Weiss?
It's on a facade improvement grant to Blue Water Properties.
I already reviewed it, so I am prepared to vote. Thank you.
And
Am I voting right now?
Yeah.
I was calling you, yes. And Mayor Pro Tem Burns.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried. Now we're on the Department of Public Works.
Okay, thank you. 14H, Assistant City Manager Kevin Yee, please.
Thank you. The Public Works Department is requesting authorization to participate with the Oakland County Purchasing for a bid for the purchase of water meter remote radio reading devices. The radio reading devices will replace the older versions which have been failing. I'm happy to announce that this is the last of the devices that we need to replace. The devices that we're replacing were, as I mentioned, were failing, and these are have replaceable batteries and have lasted a lot longer. So we've been doing this for about 10 years, and I'm happy to announce that this is the final round of us doing this work. It's recommended that City Council authorize the Public Works Department to participate in the Oakland County purchasing bid for the purchase of 700 Neptune R900 water meter remote radio reading devices at the price of $83.25 each for a total of $58,275. Funding is available in the Water and Sewer Fund. We have $120,000 budgeted for this expense.
We need a motion to authorize this purchase.
So moved.
Is that Burns?
Yep.
Okay. Second,
Second.
Weiss. Okay. Discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Yes. Councilmember Weiss.
Assistant City Manager Yee, this is sort of not directly related to the bid process, but it is really a question related to the water metering. A lot of residents have reached out recently expressing concern at inconsistent bills. I know that could be due to a number of things, leaks and whatnot, and could also possibly have to do with the new separated stormwater charge as well. But if a resident does have an issue where they receive a bill that just doesn't seem right, what should they do about that?
They should call the water department. And I believe, Sandra, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the number is 248-691-7470. And we can come out, we'll schedule an appointment where we'll actually come out and do some testing just to see if there's any leaks. And they can also explain the water bill and exactly what's happening with the stormwater charges and things like that. So we're very customer friendly in that way. We'll come right out to your house and check for leaks and just make sure things are going properly.
And are we also, have we been checking the meters, the new meters in particular, or even the old meters, just to make sure that they're reading properly and functioning properly when we come out to do those checks as well?
Well, these are just the reading devices. So all these do is take the reading from the meter and send a signal.
Okay.
The actual meters, just in general, the way that meters work is they never speed up over time. If anything, they slow down, which means that the water would be, you get a little less than what you're using. You'd be charged a little less than what you're using. So the way that meters operate is that they would never speed up. You would never have a meter that's, so to speak, faulty in a way to create a higher bill. So over time, they just run a little bit slower. That's just the way that they work.
Okay, and is it possible for the new devices to misread the reader, or is that a possibility? Is that something we've looked into?
Yeah, it really isn't, because it's taking all it's doing is sending a signal. That's all it's doing. So it's just taking the signal from the meter and sending it. That's what these devices do.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And are we ready to vote?
Mayor McClellan,
Yes.
Councilmember Weiss,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Burns,
Yes.
Councilmember Edgar.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Assistant City Manager Yee, if you could do 14I, please.
14I is a request from Deutsche Environmental Services for a contract extension of the 2019 sewer cleaning and television inspection contract M700. Deutsche has indicated that they would like to perform the 2020 sewer cleaning and television inspection contract M716. The contract did allow for one-year extension. The project will clean, inspect, and grade pipes through the designated section of the city. It is recommended City Council approve the offer for the contract extension from Deutsche Environmental Services for the 2020 sewer cleaning and television inspection project M716 for a total amount of $190,375. Funding is available in the Water and Sewer Fund.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the contract extension.
So moved.
That's Burns, and a second.
I'll second it.
That's Edgar. Thank you.
Second.
Questions? This is this is a group that we've used for many years. Is that correct?
We have used them several times, yes. They have done a good job, always have done a good job.
Any questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Weiss,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Burns,
Yes.
Councilmember Edgar,
Yes.
and Mayor McClellan.
Yes.
Okay, 14J, Assistant City Manager Yee.
Thank you. This is a request from Mattioli Cement Company for a contract extension of the 2019-20 miscellaneous concrete contract, M699. Mattioli has indicated they would like to execute the one-year contract extension of their unit prices for this project to perform the 2020-21 miscellaneous concrete contract. Contract allows for a one-year extension. This project will replace deteriorated concrete patches throughout the city. There is $200,000 in each of the local street fund and the water and sewer fund for this project. It is recommended City Council approve the offer for the contract extension from Mattioli Cement Company. for the 2020-21 miscellaneous concrete contract M714 for a total amount of $399,999.42. Funding is available in the local street fund and water and sewer fund.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the contract extension.
So moved.
That's Burns, and a second.
I'll
Second.
second it.
Who's that? Okay, that was Weiss, the second. I know that we've used Mattioli and we've been very happy with them for a long time. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. Any questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Burns,
Yes.
Councilmember Edgar,
Yes.
Mayor McClellan,
Yes,
and Councilmember Weiss.
Yes.
motion passed.
Okay, and 14K, Assistant City Manager Yee, if you could go through these for us as well.
Thank you.
And
Okay. I do have Assistant City Engineer Joe Jenkins on as well, who's helped me prepare all the items really, but this one in particular, he spent a lot of time working through and comparing with other municipalities and trying to figure out the best way that we can provide credits to ratepayers for stormwater mitigation. So effective July 1st, 2020, Oak Park has changed how sewer rates are charged to residents by separating the sanitary sewer charge from the storm sewer charges. Other communities have offered credits to ratepayers for installing stormwater mitigation measures on their property. After reviewing these credits, the engineering department drafted the attached document and are proposing permit fees and credits for different stormwater reduction methods. These fees and credits are based on the inspection time, the amount of stormwater reduction to the system, as well as the cost to implement and maintain the measure. And it's recommended that City Council approve these credits as written.
so we need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you. That's Burns, and a second.
Second.
That's Weiss, thank you. This is good news for water users in the city of Oak Park. As I understand it, if I have a rain barrel out back, it might catch 50% of what's on my roof. Can you go through that a little tiny bit? How do I know if one rain barrel will do it?
So the way that the credits are written, it's very specific on what you need for your property. For a rain barrel, you would need to collect at least 50% of the runoff coming off of your rooftops of your main building in your property. And you know, there are requirements for that. It has to be a minimum of 35 gallons in size. It has to be maintained and used. So you just can't let it sit there and just overflow, which would defeat the purpose. You need to use that water on your property, which in a year like this, they'd probably be empty, probably a few weeks ago. But, you know, there are stipulations to each of the credits. Rain barrel is one, rain garden is another. Rain garden does have to be, you know, properly done. It can't just put a little garden in and say, oh, that's a rain garden. The soil has to be properly prepared, and there are certain requirements that you have to do to meet that. Cistern, which is very similar to a rain barrel, it's just an underground type of rain collection system. There are things like infiltration trench and dry wells. There's pervious pavement, which is pavement that actually takes in water. So there are there's other things like bioswales for commercial properties and green infrastructure for building improvements, detention ponds, things like that. So there's a whole spec sheet that we have here, and we'll be posting that around once it's approved.
You'll be posting that, you said, for people to look at.
We have a whole site, or a whole page dedicated on our website to stormwater and everything that we've been doing as far as the charges and the way that it's broken out, and the credits. We'll be prepared to put the credits on that page as well.
And so we go to the city website, Department of Public Works.
It's its own page in stormwater, I believe, and we could definitely,
Yes, it has its own webpage, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
Yeah, its own page, and I don't know I can't remember the URL for it, but we can post that out there and link it to our page.
Yeah, I believe it's just the city website /stormwater.php.
Stormwater.
Madam Mayor, I have a question.
Yes.
Assistant City Manager Yee. Will we provide some kind of educational opportunities for residents to show them how they can mitigate some of the stormwater runoff with the bioswales and cisterns and so forth?
Yes, we could put something together, I'm sure, that would give more direction than even the outline does give pretty good detail, but we could put something together that maybe a little more informative or helpful to residents trying to put something like that together.
And if somebody wants a credit, they would just call your department and you would come out, send somebody out to make sure they were doing it right and they get the credit.
They would call the engineering department, they would have to get a permit. There is a fee for that permit, but that fee would be made up, in the first, within the first year for sure. But there would be a permit, there's going to be a cost. We're going to have to go out and do, inspections and that sort of thing. So
Okay.
All that'll be laid out in the documents that we're putting out.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? We need a roll call vote to approve these credits.
Councilmember Edgar,
Yes.
Mayor McClellan,
Yes.
Councilmember Weiss,
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem Burns.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, Madam Mayor, I didn't mention this before, but I've been informed by one of our city attorneys, John Galuli, that we will not be needing the closed session this evening. He'd like to reschedule that.
Okay.
But I would also like to say thank you, and that completes the city manager report for this evening.
Thank you. You have been very busy.
Staff has done a great job, and happy 4th, everybody.
Thank you. Call to the audience is first. And I know a lot of people wanted to talk about the fire pits and all of that, pro and con. Is it Crystal Van Vleck who is going to take those calls?
Yep, so we're gonna do this the way that we've done it before, which is if you're joining us using Zoom and not just calling in, then you have the option to raise your hand. If you can't find it on the bottom of your screen, if you hit participants, it should be, once you click that, it should be on the right-hand side. That's one of the options and it's called raise your hand. So we usually try to use that to see who wants to speak. And so you indicate that by raising your hand, and we'll try to go in order. And then we will unmute you as your hand is, as you raise your hand. So it looks like Cheryl Weiss is the first person with her hand up. So go ahead, Cheryl.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and City Manager. I'm here tonight to share a concern that is really bothering me as well as many others in the community. You all know me. When I have something that I'm concerned about, I bring it to you. Otherwise, I completely support the city and everything you do, and I think you do a great job. However, this is an issue. Last summer, a group of us started to talk about the need for an ordinance regarding pets. There was an issue with a dog that was left out all the time in the heat, and it was neglected, and we did not get very much support. That family ended up moving. We are dealing with another situation now, and we need ordinances that are clear, concise, and treat animals the way they should be treated. In the research I've done, 3 years ago, the city of Detroit enacted ordinances regarding how residents must provide for their pets. That includes that they cannot be tethered. They cannot be left out to live outside, to lie in the dirt, to be on a short chain with little water. They do not allow cruelty. And this is just one example. There are many others in communities around our area. In Detroit, they cannot be tethered more than 3 hours a day. They cannot be on bare earth that gets wet and muddy in the rain. They cannot be without a dry surface area for cover protection from the heat and the sun. They must have food and water bowls that cannot be tipped over. They cannot be out when the temperature is below 40 degrees without shelter and insulation, or where the sunlight is likely to cause overheating, among others. The problem with our ordinances is that it allows for discretion. That discretion is harmful for our animals. Providing a tarp on a side of a cage is not protection. Even putting a tarp over the top is not protection. We are causing these animals to suffer needlessly. It's not fair, it's not right, and Oak Park should do better. We have worked so hard to make things better for our community in Oak Park. You have worked so hard to make Oak Park better for the community. I know you can do better. It needs to be clear. It needs to not allow for animal control's discretion. It needs to be clear cut. It's over 85 degrees. You cannot have your dog out for 3 hours or more. It's cold. It's under 40 degrees. You can't leave your dog out all night. You must have a structure. You cannot just have a tarp. Please, let's get the ordinance done. Let's save these dogs from suffering cruelly all day long. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go in the order that I saw the hands raised, and just so you know, we'll unmute you as we call on you. And then but just please try to keep your phone or your screen muted otherwise, because it can cause interference. So the order that I have, that I saw was the phone number 248-589-9925. And after that, I have Sharon Levine. And then after that, I have Ken Sherman. And also, if you have any problems with using these options, you can also use the chat function and we'll try to follow you there. But again, let us unmute you, and then we'll go from there. So I'm going to unmute 248-589-9925. Go ahead.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council members. My name is Denise Trombley. As an almost 40-year resident of Oak Park and a 7-year member of the Recycling and Environmental Commission, it has come to my attention that you are considering the change to Municipal Code Section 62.42, which bans outdoor wood burning in the city. This is absolutely the wrong thing to consider. A single outdoor fire pit produces thousands of times more health-harming pollutants than inhaling secondhand smoke from a cigarette. Do not reverse the progress we have made in reducing air pollution and create a public health hazard. Smoke from a backyard campfire does not respect property lines and travels to wherever the wind takes it, into neighbors' yards or homes. Neighbors can be suffering from asthma, COPD, or any other respiratory disease, which will be made much worse by inhaling wood smoke. Since we are in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, a potentially deadly respiratory disease, why would you want to allow unchecked air pollution from backyards a few feet apart? Are you saying to the citizens a person who desires fire to relax has rights superior to the public health? What would happen if 10 or more homes on the same block decide to have backyard campfires at the same time? The elderly, newborns, children, adults who exercise, and those with heart and lung disease are most at risk. Children are more susceptible as their respiratory systems are still developing and they breathe more air and air pollution per pound of body weight than adults. Scientific research provides evidence that fine particulates such as those in wood smoke play a role in behavioral and developmental disorders in children and in the progression of cognitive decline and dementia in the elderly. There is also significant evidence that exposure to wood smoke pollution increases the risk of premature death from cardiovascular and pulmonary causes. The City of Berkeley prohibits outdoor burning on public or private ground, including materials of any kind that release odor, smoke, or other matter. The City of Royal Oak does not allow outside burning of wood. Public health should be the top priority, and wood smoke is a proven public health hazard. For the health of all our residents, please do not rescind the ban on outdoor wood burning. Thank you.
Okay, and then the next person that I have is Sharon Levine. So Sharon, I'm gonna unmute you right now. Go ahead, Sharon. No, let's see. Sharon, can you unmute yourself? I'm trying, but it's not sticking.
Okay,
There we
hello.
go.
Yes,
There we go.
it's actually Paul. Sharon's here.
Oh, sorry, Paul.
Good evening. And Mayor Pro Tem Paul, that's right. Anyways, I'm calling. Last meeting, I mentioned that I would like to some type of report to hear what's happening with the census. I don't want to take a lot of time again this meeting, but for next meeting, there's 3 questions I just wanted to ask about the census. I wanted a clarification on how much per person the city and the schools get back from the census. I've heard numbers like $1,800 a year bantered around, which is a lot of money. And I wanted to find out what we're doing to encourage and promote 100% participation, especially because I think the presentation tonight was great. Facebook is nice, and computer, for people that have computers. The self-responders, by and large, are probably people that have computers and know how to work them. There are probably a lot of people amongst those who did not respond that do not have computers. And I know with COVID, it's a little bit harder. I don't know if we can safely open up the library and let people complete their forms there. But I want to know what we're doing to pursue participation, and how much money is on the table. If it's $1,800 a person for every 2,000 people we get in, this $3.6 million. I think that would at least be a reason to send out a postcard like we did for the Millage renewals. Thank you.
Okay, the next person whose hand I see up is Ken Sherman. Ken, I'm gonna unmute you right now. There you go.
Hi, good evening. I have one question and one comment. My comment is last Wednesday, the Friends of the Library had a very successful book sale at the farmer's market, and we're doing another book sale at the farmer's market this Wednesday. And I understand that the mayor obtained some freebies for our non-adult population for our book sale this coming Wednesday. So just wanted to give you a heads up about that. And then secondly, I have a question about sidewalks. I noticed in my travels that a lot of the residential homes have sidewalk slabs that are either uneven or at an angle. And I know you do sidewalk repairs on a schedule, but what do you do when you come across these sidewalks that are a danger to people walking and really can't wait until the next scheduled repair?
Madam Mayor, do you want me to address that?
That would be lovely. Yeah.
I'm going to defer to Director Barrett if we have him on the call still.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor, Council here. Mr. Sherman, we do address random trip hazards. All you have to do is report them to us, and we put them into the miscellaneous concrete program. So they'll be replaced typically within the next construction season. So feel free to report those trip hazards to us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have a good evening.
It looks like I have another hand raised, but I'm not sure if this is Denise again, because it looks like it's coming from the same phone number, but I'm going to unmute them. I believe everybody has 3 minutes individually, but if this is not, I want to make sure this isn't Denise. And so we give them a chance to speak.
Greetings, Mayor McClellan and City Council members. My name is Joel Stein, and I'm almost 50-year resident of the City of Oak Park. I was extremely dismayed to learn you are considering rescinding the outdoor burning ban. This should not be under consideration for a variety of reasons and is simply wrong. Protecting the public health, safety, and environment from wood smoke should be your top priority. The negative and potentially lethal health risks associated with the inhalation of wood smoke are incredibly well documented. Council has been provided with scientific peer-reviewed papers, literature, and studies from the Environmental Protection Agency, Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, National Institutes of Health, Washington State, American Lung Association, American Heart Association, and many others. These are scientific facts proving the dangers of wood smoke exposure, not opinions. Public Act 188 of 2009, Michigan's smoke-free air law, clearly recognizes the danger of secondhand smoke from a single cigarette and the requirement of a smoke-free environment for health safety. Smoke from a small backyard recreational fire can produce thousands of times more toxic byproducts than a cigarette. In this age of COVID-19 pandemic, there's absolutely no justification to allow burning wood that could potentially make COVID much worse. The city has a large number of residents at increased risk for respiratory and cardiovascular issues, including infants, children, the elderly, people with asthma, COPD, and cardiovascular disease. The medical and scientific literature is clear. Wood smoke is toxic and hazardous to human health and can precipitate a respiratory crisis. Residents need to be protected from controllable sources of health hazards and pollution, such as wood smoke. The current outdoor burning ban has been doing this fairly successfully for several decades. What would happen if 5, 10, or more backyard fires are burning simultaneously on your street? What happens when a neighbor has a wood fire every day? How would anyone get away from the smoke? What happens when someone lights a fire on an air quality action day like today? Since a major component of wood smoke is PM 2.5 particulate pollution, could make the air lethal to susceptible residents with underlying disease. PM 2.5 particulates penetrate walls, closed doors, and windows to contaminate indoor air. Don't you believe that residents deserve a smoke-free environment? What happens when a resident wants to enjoy a warm summer day in their own backyard but can't because a neighbor is creating wood smoke, forcing them inside to get away from the smoke? Residents should not be forced to keep their windows closed because wood smoke from a neighbor's fire is permeating their house. Residents should be secure in their yards and homes, capable of enjoying a healthy, smoke-free environment, free from toxic wood smoke. Many cities, including Royal and Berkeley, have outdoor burning bans to protect their residents' health. Oak Park should continue to do the same and keep Section 6242, Chapter 62, Article 2, Division 1, burning of the Code of Ordinances unchanged. In conclusion, City Council should not rescind the outdoor burning ban and should continue to keep Oak Park residents safe, healthy, and free from wood smoke hazards. It's the progressive thing to do. Nobody's recreational activity should be more important than their neighbor's right to a smoke-free, healthy environment without the threat of having respiratory or cardiovascular crisis caused by wood smoke. As Michigan Public Act 188 states, clean air is fundamental to good health. Smoke-free air is good for Michigan residents, workers, and visitors.
Mr. Stein, your 3 minutes are up, but thank you for your detailed report.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other hands raised.
Crystal?
Yeah.
If I could, Jamie Horowitz did put in the comments, and I'll just read what she said. Just a quick reminder to support the library and visit Oak Park Friends of the Library table at the Farmers Market Wednesday from 9 to 2 for our annual book sale.
Another second if you guys would like.
Is there anyone else wishing to talk?
Looks like that's it.
Thank you so much for leading that, Director of Ed Vleck. And it's time for call to the council. Mayor Pro Tem Burns.
Thank you, council members, for all your hard work and everything that you've done. Thank you for all of our participants, and everyone have a good, safe evening.
Amen. Council Member Weiss.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, thank you everyone who called in and expressed concerns over the various issues. We really appreciate it. And we appreciate you being involved and giving feedback. I just want to stress in regards to some of the public comments tonight regarding animals. We hear you. I know council has been talking about this, and we hope to be working and hopefully have something for the next agenda, but we'll be working on that. Additionally, I just want to wish everyone a happy belated 4th of July, and just remind everyone, I know a lot of people have been complaining about the fireworks. Some people love the fireworks. But at this point, the holiday has passed, so please be respectful of your neighbors. A lot of people, have pets or small children, or they struggle with, not being able to sleep or other issues. So please be respectful and think of your neighbors before setting off any loud fireworks. And then finally, just a reminder, if you do have any issues or concerns or questions regarding your water bill, or regarding the new formulas for determining your stormwater, or anything else, you, as Assistant City Manager Kevin Yee already mentioned, you can always call the Water Department. That number again is 248-691-7470. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Thank you. Councilmember Edgar. Oh, wait.
Good evening, everyone. I wanted to thank council. I wanted to thank City Manager Tungate and Crystal Van Vleck for the very good presentations tonight.
Bravo.
I would say that I also think we should take up the animal protection ordinances that we have. I think it's time to do that. We've gotten lots of comments from residents. And I do think it's time to look at our ordinance again. We're doing a lot of stuff now, which is great. And I would just say, the fireworks. It's great that they stopped when they were supposed to stop. But a lot of fireworks are set off in the parks, the school parks next to where I live. And every year when I'm walking there, I see a ton of debris all over the place, the shells from the fireworks and so forth. And then there are garbage cans nearby, and there are even dumpsters nearby, and nobody bothers to pick up that stuff. And I don't know who ends up picking it up. I imagine the school district has to do it, but I would say if you're gonna fire off whatever it is you're firing off, please throw away the wrappers, the shells, whatever you would call them. Anyway, thank you very much for attending. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Just to add on to what Jamie Horowitz said, who is our working very hard for Friends of the Library, among others. I went to and got books in a bag, and I bought a kid's bag for my grandchildren. And I got something like 12 books that were really nicely picked out, nice books. Somebody is spending a lot of time choosing what's in the bag. So a bunch of books for $5. And then our owner of our McDonald's at Lincoln Center is the Dada Corporation. And I called Avi Dada, and I said, could you give us some, free coupons for kind of sweeten up the book sale? And he hand delivered $550 worth of coupons, 100 ice cream coupons, and 100 coupons for 10 chicken McNuggets. So you could pay $5, get 12 books, and a $4.50 McDonald's coupon. Come on down and save some money and read some books. Thank you so much. There's lots more, but it'll be in the mayor's message because we are tired. There being no further business to come before this council, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Whoa.